Hello, friends. Hi, Alicia. Hi, Shelly. Hello, Jay. Friends, it's been 2 weeks since I've been on. I've missed all of you. How are you? Tell me everything. Tell me how you've been feeling for the last 2 weeks in an emoji style. It is my favorite. Tell me in an emoji, how has the last 2 weeks been treating all of you? Hey, Alicia. Hey, girl. Hey. Because for me, okay, what would my emoji be? Well, I've been off. I took a vacation. I needed some fucking rest. So, hi, Becca. So, my emoji would, but yeah. And then I came back, and then the Derek Chauvin trial started. So that's on some fuck shit. I love the butterflies and the happy faces. Yes, if you're just joining, hey friends. Alicia, oh my God, that's a lot of emojis, Gina. You got a sad face, a yawn face, a crazy face. Yeah, a side eye. I feel you. Because of poor connection. The world, according to COVID, has really fucked with me. So today I want to talk about a couple of things because a lot of fuck shit has happened since I came back. And mainly, friends, first of all, let's give a quick round of applause for actually passing the $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill that, guess what, Republicans didn't want to happen. Because guess what? They hate Americans and they hate America. And what we have known to be true and what Democrats need to consistently do, and they don't, which is to remind the American people about the fact that they don't care about you. I thought to myself, 4 years of Trump, tell me what was the one thing that Donald Trump, a piece of legislation that he passed that bettered America? Just think about one thing. One thing over the last 4 years, Mitch McConnell, the Grim Reaper, is in the Senate. Donald Trump is in the House, is in the White House. What did they do? Aside from passing $1 trillion tax cut for the rich. And what I don't understand is how 75 million people continued to decide that they wanted to vote for Donald Trump again, that Republicans are their party, when I ask you, what have they done for you lately? Have they put more money in your pocket, more food on your table, given you better health care, given you a better plan, cleaner water? No, because there's an area of Mississippi right now, I don't know if you folks know this because it's not getting a lot of press. Jefferson, Mississippi has been boiling water since the beginning of February. And just so happens, guess who lives there? Black people, right? But also, just so we all still remember, I don't know, there's the entirety of Flint, Michigan that for 6 fucking years has been boiling water. But nonetheless, when I think to myself about the fact that we are here, just 2 months into the Biden-Harris administration, we've passed this $1.9 trillion bill. Americans will be getting the relief that they need. But understand, folks, it's still a fucking Band-Aid. What is $1,400? It's not $1,400 a month, right? For the next year. I mean, we have extended the child care tax credit. Great. That is also going to last for a year. So these things that we are doing, they are Band-Aids. They are necessary Band-Aids, but when your leg is hanging on by a fucking string, what a Band-Aid gonna do? Not much. So here we are at this phase where we know that Republicans don't want to do anything for the American people. They are wholly embracing racism, as if we did not know that they were always embracing racism. But now they are just outwardly attacking their own colleagues on the House floor, on the Senate floor. It's a wild place that we're in right now. We are living in the wild, wild west. And I know that people think that because we had the election in November, that everything was going to be okay. But just imagine, just think to yourself what will happen to the United States if Republicans get their hands back on power in 2022. If Democrats are not on with their messaging and saying, we are the ones that are giving you this $1,400 check. We are the ones that are ensuring that your water is clean. We are the ones that are making sure that your kids can get back to school. 20% of Americans, 30 million, no, 20% of Americans right now have had at least one vaccination shot. At least one. We are on pace, past pace of what Biden had projected. By the summer, by May, he is saying that almost all Americans will have had the vaccination. So imagine where we would be if Donald Trump was still in office. Well, one, he never even talked about the coronavirus, so I'm certain that the only people that would have gotten vaccinated are his entire family and, pretty much done what Ron DeSantis has been doing in Florida, which is using them as Republican Party favors, where, if you give him a lot of money, you pat him on the back, then you get a vaccination. These people are the epitome of grift and disgust. I tell you, it's something so extraordinary. Did you hear the latest with regard to Jim Jordan? Have you heard about what Jim Jordan did? Well, apparently, the Federal Election Commission can't seem to find $3 million that he didn't account for. And then they're telling us, his office is saying, they just messed up with the taxes. But the FEC said, did you mess up in 2018, 2019, and in 2020? They are a bunch of fucking lying grifters. That's who they are. That's who they've always been. But apparently, 75 million Americans are still down with them. And I just don't understand it. I really don't. Anyway, I want to get to what is going to really be on my nerves and is going to be a part of Woke Wednesdays for the next couple of weeks, which is the Derek Chauvin case that is happening right now in Minneapolis. And I got to tell you, folks, I'm not ready for it. I'm not here for it. I'm not here to watch yet another white police officer that was caught on video murdering an unarmed black man that is tackled in the prone position with a knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds for them to say that, they want a part and parcel. You hear what the defense is saying? George Floyd, they're saying, did not die from the knee on the neck. No, they're saying that, he died because of a drug or a pill that he took, or he died because he had underlying heart disease. I don't care what the fuck my underlying any issue could have been. If you have your knee on my neck and then your other officer friends are putting pressure on other parts of my body for that amount of time, what do you think is going to happen? I just, I get so confused and utterly just disgusted with how people even take up these cases. I could never be a defense attorney. I'm sure they get paid a lot of money, but I just couldn't, because I don't know how everyone around the world watched that video. And then we're going to want to say, well, it wasn't asphyxiation. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It was depravity. It was disgusting. It was dehumanization. The casualness, you know what always gets me about how this video keeps playing in my mind? And George Floyd was the last video that I said that I was ever going to watch, because I'm not into Black death porn. That is not something that I am into at all. And I know that it's important for us to see it, because it's important for us to have aggression and aggravation and push people to do better. But sometimes you have to preserve your own well-being. Sometimes you have to preserve your own health. But when I watch that video as it replays in my head, the casualness, the man never took his sunglasses off of his head. He never took his hands out of his pocket. The smirk that was on his face, right? It was a travesty. So when you look at it, then say, he was in fear for his life. Because you know that is the excuse that police officers have been using since the beginning of time. And why do they all use it? Because they all get off on it. I feared for my life. You're the one with the gun. You're the one with supposed training. You fear for your life because my skin to you seems like a weapon? You fear for your life and you have to execute me in broad daylight as I cry out for my mother because you see me and my body, my being as a weapon? I tell you, it's too much. So as we're going through right now, as we're going through the jury selection, the other thing that is really frustrating me are the questions that are being asked. And I talked about this today on Woke AF with our friend and legal expert, Glenn Kirshner. And that show will air tomorrow. But what we talked about were the questions being asked, right? Which is, do you believe that blue lives matter? Do you support Black Lives Matter? Have you ever been to a protest? If you went to a Black Lives Matter protest, what was on your sign? The idea that just the phrase, just the ideology that Black lives actually do matter is a question to be asked that could potentially remove you from being able to serve as a juror. There were protests in all 50 states for the first time in our country's history. The uprisings in the summer of 2020 were the largest uprisings in this country ever. So to say that people who watch that video, and then remember, this week, folks, this week is the year since Breonna Taylor was killed in her bed while she slept. No charges brought. Do you remember what they wanted to charge the officer with? Not her murder, but for endangering the building. Because what they care about is property, right? And they only gave a fuck about Black people when we were property, right? And care by meaning of, let us create this slave force, which then would develop into the police force. Let us keep this slave force so that we can protect our property, so that we can bring our property back. So when we look at how each of these cases of white vigilantes, white police officers murdering Black people in broad daylight on tape and nothing happening, we have to understand the orientation. We have to understand the history of it and where it comes from. It makes me sick. And what makes me sicker, and I was enraged. I took a break, and then it's like every time that I take a break, I come back and some fuck shit happens. But I took a break, and I come back, and I'm looking at pictures of downtown Minneapolis, right, where they're holding the Shovin jury selection and where the trial will be. What did you guys notice when you're watching the news and you're seeing the downtown Minneapolis? And if you haven't watched the news, then let me tell you. It's completely boarded up. There are 2,000 National Guardsmen that have been dispersed to Minneapolis, right? But as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I've researched, there have been no threats of violence, no threats of terrorism, no organized groups headed there other than people seeking justice. So what America does when you are seeking justice, when you are asking for your life to matter, when you are saying that you are deserving to be able to walk to a store, to be able to play on a playground, to be able to sit or sleep in your car, to be able to go to the store, right? To be able to sleep in your own fucking bed. That when we protest in that manner, you need to bring out the full force of the military, right? You need the National Guard. You need to board up windows. But when white people openly on social media that they are coming from you, when they tell you that they are going to attack, going to carry weapons, let's act as if this is war on 1/6. Where the fuck was the National Guard? Where the fuck was Washington, D.C. boarded up? Right? White people tell you they are going to commit acts of violence because they somehow feel aggrieved at a lie, at the big lie of a loss of an election that was not lost. It was lost, but it wasn't stolen. the FBI, the CIA, oh, we never could have seen it coming. But every time that a black person is unjustifiably murdered and then their murderers get off, then they want to board up cities. Why don't you just do the right fucking thing? Here's an idea. Instead of boarding up cities, instead of pretending like black people are the aggressors in this situation, which we are not, instead of doing that, why wouldn't you invest in a justice system that actually gives a fuck? Right? Why wouldn't you invest in creating a system that works for all people, because you don't want it to work for all people? And so all you have to do right now is look at the layout of what is happening in Minneapolis and what didn't happen in Washington. It drives me crazy. It is driving me crazy, and it is that is constantly telling you, you don't matter. You are a threat, right? Just by virtue of me being black, walking down the street. That's the justification for murder. And every time that we do not convict one of these villainous, disgusting, despicable, racist people, all we do is give license to more of them to do the same thing over and over again. Do you know, I don't even know who has kept a record, and maybe I need to look this up. Do you know how many hashtags there have been since Trayvon Martin? How many black children, black women, black men have been stolen from their families, from their communities since 2014? And it's 2021 and we're still doing this shit. And then they tell us, oh, don't you riot, don't you protest, don't you kneel, right? Don't kneel, don't protest, don't you do anything, but you wait on the criminal justice system. And then we wait. And we say, we're going to think that this system is going to work for us. And then guess what? It fucking doesn't. So I'm always so confused about why we continue to even air these trials. Like why we even continue to put our faith, hi Torre, why we even continue to put our faith in all of this. I don't want to watch this trial. I have to. I don't want to fucking watch it. Because I feel like I know how it's going to end. How many times do we have to see the same story play out over and over again, crossing our fingers and hoping to God that something changes? How many times? How many times before we recognize that this system is built and working in the way that it was always supposed to work? They ended slavery, right? Slavery ended, but then they created another system in which to put black people in cages. So either you get to murder us in broad daylight and have no accountability and no responsibility. You get to fill our communities with drugs. You get to not create any infrastructure. You get to deny us loans. You get to deny us education. You get to do all these things. And then when you fall into criminality, then they say, look how bad they are. So now we're going to over-police them and then lock them up. It's a vicious cycle, folks, and it's all a fucking lie. I feel like we are living on the set of the Truman Show every single time one of these trials comes up, because we're all going to pretend like justice is blind. We're all going to pretend that something good is going to come out of this. And if by the grace of God it does, wonderful. But let me tell you that that will be the first in a line of too many families that have received nothing. And every time I think to myself, every time we see one of these cases, we are just one step closer for it to being somebody you know, one step closer for it being somebody that I know and love. It's too much. And then we're supposed to be civil. We're supposed to continue holding our heads up high. We're supposed to continue having this era of grace. You know what I said the other day to a group of my friends? I said, there is no community that has more grace than black people do. Because if anybody has any reason to burn this country to the ground every single day, it would be black Americans. It would be any black person that has lived in these United States and been born in these United States or come here, because the treatment that we receive is unimaginable. And the fact that we don't blow up on a regular basis, the fact that we continue to work hard, to go to school, the fact that we continue to excel and bring you culture and style and grace and leaders and poets and musicians is a testament to how brilliant and amazing this community is. But we don't ever get the applause for that. What does the shirt say? They love black culture, but not black people. And so it's amazing to me, and I'm about to make an amazing pivot. It's amazing to me then that you would have Harry and Meghan decide that they needed to leave the origins of racism in the UK to come to the United States because they think it's safer here or fairer. And I'm like, yeah, I guess if you're a black celebrity, but also not really, right? And so it's like, can you imagine how fucking racist the UK has to be, right? In order for Meghan and Harry to be like, of all the places that we could go to, let us go to the United States after the uprisings over the summer and in the midst of the Black Lives Matter movement and all of this shit going down here. And they're like, ooh, the UK, not our bag anymore. Seems unsafe. This, you know, what I really appreciate though, and I keep telling folks, I'm not a royal watcher, but the interview that Meghan gave with Oprah really struck me to my core, because if you are a black woman that has worked anywhere, went to school anywhere, everything that Meghan laid out, and let me tell you something, the phrase that I want us all to stop using, let us commit to stop using the term microaggression. Because if you have ever been on the receiving end, it's just aggression, it's just racism, and there's nothing fucking micro about it. It ain't small. It is death by 1,000 cuts. And so the very idea that she was told to minimize herself, to show up as 50% less, if you are a black woman and you are watching this right now, raise your hand if something has ever been said to you in that vein. Show up less. Don't be so loud. Don't be so angry. Don't wear your hair like that. Don't have your outfit like that, right? Don't shine too bright. Don't take up space. When Oprah asked, were you silent or silenced? Let me tell you something. Again, hit me right in my gut. Because I can tell you, I can name to you places that I have been where I have been told that I was too much. And frankly, for the most part, I fucking am. But I have the right to take up space, as does everybody else with something to fucking say. Smile more. Yes, another one. You know, these are the things that women, but particularly black women, are told all the fucking time. Do you remember, what was it, a couple of years ago, I'll say, remember the whole fight in the army for black women to be able, in the military, for black women to be able to wear their natural hair in braids, right? Because who was going to be doing their hair? And they were told that it was not appropriate. And then they had to go, we have had to go to court, folks. We have had to go to court in order to allow our hair to be worn the way the fuck it grows out of our head. And so listening to her, it wasn't about the fact that she's rich and she's in the spotlight or anything like that. It was what Serena Williams said. All of our daughters, all of our sons should be able to show up in the fullness of who the fuck they are and be able to exist without having to shrink or be minimized for people that are so fucking fragile. First of all, the monarchy shouldn't even still exist. It is 2021. What the fuck do? They don't have any power. They don't have any authority. What they do is suck money from the taxpayers in the UK so that they can live this lavish life in the middle of an economic meltdown. How does that even work? But to go back to the point that there are some people that were shocked that someone in the royal family would say, we're concerned about how dark Harry would be. They invented slavery, folks. Like, they are the colonizer, right? So you think what? Because they shake hands with Oprah Winfrey, because they maybe go to some entertainment gathering, that these motherfuckers aren't racist to their core? Why the fuck would Archie be the only child in the royal family not to receive a title and not to receive security? Why would Tyler Perry, of all people, have to come out and offer protection, right? It's so funny to me because somebody said on Twitter, they're like, they said, imagine if Meghan Markle was darker. Imagine if Meghan Markle was my complexion. And I was like, you wouldn't have to imagine, because first of all, she wouldn't have married into no fucking royal family, okay? She wouldn't have married into nobody's royal family looking like this. But it's like, you look at this biracial woman and you would think that she looks like me, for their outrage to be like, oh my God, this child who's gonna be a quarter black is too dark to receive somebody's fucking title, to receive security and safety, knowing the way in which his mother was killed. And remember, mind you, her security was pulled as well. And she had to get private security when she divorced Prince Charles. And so imagine all of this playing back in your head if you were Harry and you had to live through trauma and you're watching it happen all over again. And he was honest about the fact that I've never had to confront this in my life. Why the fuck would he? Right? And it's what is unfortunate to me is that you shouldn't have to marry a black person. You shouldn't have to have a black friend. You shouldn't have to have had a black teacher in order to have empathy for black lives, right? It's the same thing that I felt as a queer woman when back in the day, GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, were doing these pollings. And 20, 30 years ago, when they were asking how people felt about LGBTQ people, they were like, basically, they shouldn't exist. Acceptance was in the teens, if that, right? Now, 20 years later, acceptance for LGBTQ people is in the 80s. It fell under Trump, by the way. It was higher, but it fell under Trump. But it was because more and more people were coming out, and more people recognized that their aunts, their sisters, their daughters, their mothers, their cousins were gay or trans or bi or lesbian, right? Or queer. But it shouldn't take you to have a personal connection to connect to your own humanity. And that's what gets me. That's what troubles me about where we are in our society, about where we are right now. That you have these members of Congress stripping out a $15 living wage when they're taking 6 figures from us, the taxpayers, because they can't have empathy about what it would be like to try and pay for rent and childcare and food and clothing on $7 an hour. $7 an hour. The world needs more empathy. And we need to model the grace that black people show on a regular fucking basis, frankly, if we are going to get anywhere, to progress, or to be better. Because where we are right now, where we find ourselves in this spoiled time, in this spoiled, and by spoiled, I don't mean bratty, I mean spoiled as in rancid space that we are in. What we need is more empathy. What we need is more compassion. What we need is more humans to express their humanity. And this week has just been non-stop bullshit, and it's just Wednesday. But I have to tell all of you that it is important for us to continue to push forward, to continue to model behavior that is not being reflected back at us, right? Because I don't want the rest of us to get stuck in the rancid, to get stuck in the spoil, right? Because that's where they want us, because it makes us feel hopeless and it makes us feel like nothing will ever get better. But it does, right? But it's determined by how we act and how we treat ourselves, how we expect people to treat us, and then how we treat others. So I hope that we can learn something from the voice that Meghan gave to the apparent racism that she felt. It was not a claim, or as the New York Times put it, a whiff of racism. Racism is not a fucking cologne or a perfume. It is not a whiff, right? It is not an air of it. It's not a slight. It is something so pungent and so grotesque, right? To treat it with something with such levity is to dismiss the pain that it causes, right? So when we speak, let's speak truth to power. When we talk to one another, let's do so with compassion and grace. And then maybe then we will be able to evolve into a better place. But for right now, folks, have a cocktail, take a deep breath, and continue marching on. We will get there someday at some point together. Thank you so much for tuning in to Woke Wednesday this week. I appreciate all of you so much. And if you want more of me, then check me out on patreon.com/wokeaf, $5 a month for 5 shows a week, 1-hour shows. Appreciate all of you. Until next week, ciao.